Hey, Roger here to help you get started quickly with Symphony IO Mark II's monitor workflows. With monitor workflows, you can connect and control up to 32 speakers. You could open your own hi-fi store with a wall of sound if you wanted to. But seriously, you can configure Symphony IO for multiple stereo and immersive audio speaker formats, and then switch between them at the touch of a button. First, let's make sure your setup meets our system requirements. Be sure to check that you've installed Symphony Control version 0.5.00 or greater by opening the software and choosing Symphony Control about Symphony Control. Now that you're up to date, let's get started. Setting up monitor workflows is a two-step process. First, assign which Symphony IO analog outputs are connected to speakers. Next, create a monitor workflow by selecting one of 16 available slots and configuring speaker output settings for a specific monitoring workflow. For example, you'd like to route the stereo output of your DAW session to 3 sets of stereo speakers and then be able to switch between them. So let's start there. First, open Symphony Control software. Then, to open the analog output setup window, click the toolbar device icon, and then click the analog output setup button. Since we're connecting 3 pairs of speakers, we need 6 speaker outputs. So set outputs 1, 2 through 5, 6 to speaker. We could use any available outputs, but for the moment, we're going to use the first 6. Now connect the actual speakers to analog outputs 1 through 6. When you set an analog output pair to speaker, that output's level is now controlled by Symphony system hardware and software encoders. Next, click the Monitor Workflows button and select slot number 1. Double-click on the label to change it to something like 3 stereo. Now, to configure speaker output settings for this workflow, click the toolbar I/O button. In the output row of channels, set Source for analog outputs 1, 2 through 5, 6 to Playback 1, 2. This routes your stereo DAW output to the 3 sets of speakers. Now, to set up switching between the speakers, assign a different speaker set to each pair. Now, as you click through the speaker set buttons in the monitor sidebar, you'll see that the active set is indicated by a bright green speaker icon. If you find that one set of speakers is louder or softer than the others, you can correct that balance using the speaker trims. So, what if you need to monitor through Symphony Control's direct mixer instead of playback 1 and 2? For example, when you're recording with a high DAW buffer setting, but you need low latency. So for that option, we're going to set up a second monitor workflow. We'll start by copying the first workflow into the second slot. In the Monitor Workflows window, select 3 stereo, click Export, then select slot 2 and click Import. We'll change the name of this second workflow to 3 direct. Now set source for our 3 pairs of analog outputs to mixer 1. Now you can set the balance between the direct input signal and the DAW playback in the mixer, whose output is then routed to your 3 speaker sets. Now that we have 2 workflows that each have 3 speaker sets, how can we switch between them quickly? Well, switching can be done from 3 places: the Symphony Control monitor sidebar, the front panel touchscreen, or the assignable hardware remote control. To assign buttons on the hardware remote control, choose Window Remote in Symphony Control, and then assign speaker sets and monitor workflows to each button on the remote. So I hope this video has shown you enough to start creating your own monitor workflows. If you're setting up an Atmos system, especially with Logic Pro, you want to check out the next video in this series.